Okay, today we're going to be practicing transitions because in your assessment, you will be graded on whether or not you create something called coherence using transitions in your paragraph. So you should have a paper that looks like this in front of you. At the top is the word coherence. I would like you to stop right now. You can pause if you need to and write down this definition. Coherence is the clear and orderly presentation of ideas in a paragraph or essay. In other words, if you're not creating coherence, then your ideas are not connected. It makes your writing more choppy, harder to follow, and harder for the reader to understand. One way that you can create coherence is by making sure you're using transitions. So transitions connect ideas. Writers use transitional words and phrases to create coherence and help readers move smoothly through the essay or paragraph. Transitions establish relationships between one thought and the next, both within and between body paragraphs. That means that you're not just throwing a transition at the beginning of each paragraph, but you're making sure that you're transitioning between ideas inside of the paragraph also. Does that mean you should have a transition at the beginning of every single sentence? No. But if you're moving from one idea to another, then you should have a transition. If you look at this chart down here, you'll see transitions for different purposes. So transitions to offer evidence, to introduce an interpretation, to compare and contrast, to add information, to clarify, and to conclude. I want you to pause right now and I want you to circle or put a star next to one transition in each box that you think would be good to use that you don't normally use. So for example, if you use for example a lot in your writing or even in your speaking, put a star next to one that you think, oh, I don't use that one often. I'm going to try to use this in my writing. So do that in this box, and then in this box, and then in this box. You get the idea. A star or a circle next to one, or maybe even two that you think, oh, I don't use that one often. Maybe that's one that I can use. Okay, hopefully you have now paused and you have followed those directions. So keep in mind when you're writing that you want to try not to use the same transitions every time because then it starts to sound repetitive. So what I want you to do next is go down here and you'll see that for each of these numbers, there's a couple of sentences. You'll look at the beginning here. This one says to offer evidence. That means you're going to go up to the box that says to offer evidence, and you're going to pick a transition from this box that you think fits well in these couple of sentences. Go ahead and just take your pencil and you'll just draw a little arrow where you think the transition goes and just write it in there. So this first one says all students would benefit from dedicated reading time in school. Research shows that regular reading increases vocabulary and comprehension and it reduces stress. So go ahead and take your pencil now, just draw a little arrow where you think a transition would go and write the transition from this box that you think would work the best. So if you wrote something like all students would benefit from dedicated reading time in school, for instance, so you could put for instance here, research shows that regular reading increases vocabulary and comprehension and it reduces stress. That would have been a really good one to use. You could also use, for example, you could also use to illustrate. There's several that would work there. Okay, go ahead and go on to the next one. Regular reading increases a student's academic skills such as vocabulary acquisition and comprehension. Reading also helps with stress reduction and empathy for others. So this is introduce an interpretation. So which of these transitions do you think would work well in here and where would it go? Go ahead and write it in there now. And then go ahead and do the same for 3, 4, 5, and 6. So pause and do those. So you should have done 1 through 6 above. Now I want you to look at this paragraph. You might be familiar with Mulan. There was an older animated Disney movie or the more recent live action movie. But the following sample paragraph is based on a folklore story from China about a girl, Mulan, who chooses to go to war in place of her ill father. Mark the draft to indicate where transitions could be added. So use the chart on the previous page, that same chart we used before. Determine what kinds of transitions are appropriate to this expository paragraph. Then you're just going to do the same thing that you did above. Just draw a little arrow or a little caret where you think a transition goes and write the transition that you would think would work best. Like we talked about before, try to use different transitions so it doesn't sound super repetitive. You should find at least 6 places to add transitions. At least 6 places to add transitions. Okay, so that's going to be your last task on this. And then once you're done, you can glue this page onto page 38 in your notebook as a flappy.